The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing quite well. Ready to hear some letters. I got my coffee. Do you have your coffee?
I do have my coffee. And it is still April here when we're recording this. We're actually going to start letters from April of 1947 in this episode. So that's always nice when that lines up. And I would like to remind everybody, April is National Letter Writing Month. And I remember this because as of yesterday, which was in 2025 calendar, April 25th, the Love Sweetie podcast had its first birthday for dropping videos on YouTube. YouTube sent a notification and said, you've been posting videos for a year. So happy birthday to the Love Sweetie podcast.
April 25th, too. That's such a great date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
It's not too hot or not too cold. You just need a light jacket.
If you don't know what that reference is from, look it up.
Well, then you're sad. If you don't know that reference, then you're a sad person. I'm sorry.
I know that reference.
Yes, you do.
It's too good. Yeah.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
So, Allison, our first letter today is from February 16th.
It is. Yeah. And then we'll head into April after that. So starting with Sweetie, I think we just let her go. 37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, February 16th, 1947. Dear Daddy, Mama, Jean, sisters, Franks, and Florence. Well, I've waited days and days to get off a letter, and so to compensate, I'll have to make this another home journal to bring you up to date. As it is, I hardly know where to begin. As I said before, one sure way to get mail is to neglect writing, and everybody pours it on. Some of it is the kind that shames or reprimands me for not writing, but it is mail, and I'm not nearly so likely to get it if I'm being the model correspondent. Do you see me sitting here with my nose in my hands? Of course, Frank just has a baby once a year and a boy once every 2 years, and of course, my boy was born while I was in Iowa, but I just wonder if Mama would have come here to see me when he was born. She picks up her suitcase and goes to Chicago to see Frank. Doesn't say a word about coming on here to see me, and my nose is so out of joint it just up and broke off in my hand, and here I sit holding it, and can't get it to stick back on. I'm mortally wounded. Course, the fact that it is 18 hours longer, and it is cold, and the trains aren't anywhere as good as the one she had. But do you know now all the kids have seen her new teeth? And I'm the one that did all the head banging to try to get them for her sooner. Well, somebody make sure I get a letter telling all about the visit. Will you? Now I mean all about it. What you said and what he said. That kind, and then maybe my nose will fuse back on my face. I'm glad that she could see the new baby while he is still small and has the newborn look. She will have a lot better idea of what goes on once she has seen your nice apartment, met Maida's mother and dad, and has a chance to look around a little. She will surely enjoy Susie and the time she spends there. I guess I'd better offer you congratulations on the new boy. Gee, I'd love to see him too, but just the same, Lou reminds me that we were the only ones to produce a boy on the first attempt. Yak, yak, you'll never live that down so long as Lou lives. The announcements were very good. Susie looks like such a big girl, though. I can't help but remember her as the little girl she was when we last saw her. Just as I keep remembering little R as a wee bit of a baby, though Florence says he is growing so big. Well, so is Louis.
Did you see the transition from her, being so my nose is out of joint and stuff, and then talking about how she's obviously upset that her mother didn't come visit her, but she kind of as the letter went on, she kind of dealt with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like, well, I hope you guys have a good time at least. Yeah. And so she kind of worked through it.
And I would remind everybody that little Louis and now little F are not the only grandsons in the family. There's also Chris.
Yeah.
Sisters had Chris, but Emma was first. So, oh, Lou, he's just finding his way to poke.
And it's fun. And he's making
Mhm.
her feel better too.
Yeah.
But that was some serious shade.
Mhm. Daddy, I think I told you the medicines came all in fine order, and of course, now that we have them, we'll not put them to any use. Louis has had a slight cold, no fever, and all I've given him was a half aspirin to ease his fret and quiet him down. I've also given him some sulfa, though not in as large doses as we gave him when I was home with him, and he has never had the hives again, and I've the opinion that it was the esky preparation that caused it. I told you about the intestinal flu that he had. I gave him a lot of the red liquid that we used for colic, etc., and it had no apparent effect on him at all. He didn't have a fever, but he had quite a red rash on his face and neck one evening after I'd given him a lot of the red liquid, and I guess he was showing some signs from that. It was largely disappeared the next morning, but it didn't help the flu. So we took him to the Naval Hospital, which in itself is a major expedition. We've always received the best treatment there, which reminds me much of the discussion you and Frank had on socialized medicine. And the doctor takes great pride in remembering each family or each child. He gave us some medicine, and it stopped the diarrhea in 2 days and pulled him out of the kinks quite well. He asked me how old Louis was now, and when I told him, he accused me of mixing my dates because Louis is such a big kid. You must be mistaken, Mrs. Graham. This boy has the physique of a 2-year-old. Louis was very cooperative. Laying flat and quietly, he looked in his ears and commented, "You're bringing this boy up right." Because he didn't fight. The stethoscope was a telephone, and he obliged by helloing the doctor. But he wasn't too pleased at being gagged by the tongue depressor and immediately decided he'd had enough and got up to prove it. He has been all right since. He is cutting more molars, though his eye teeth aren't through yet. He doesn't seem to be talking as well as I'd like to hear. He makes noises that show what he wants, and if I ask, "Are you hungry?" he goes to the high chair and tries to get into it, but he doesn't say in words what I want him to. Like KM, he carries on a very agitated conversation over a toy telephone with many gestures a la Aunt Jean. He understands nearly everything we tell him, but he just won't talk. There still doesn't seem to be much change of taking the bottle away from him, though for the last 3 nights he has slept the night through with no interruptions. A welcome change, but I fear temporary. He is a natural-born clown, and even when he is going about his own business, he is so funny that I can't help but laugh at him. I told you on the cards that I'd been busy. Well, I have. I've heard that there is quite a market for tatted things, and so I've decided to try my hand at it and see if there is any money in it. That means that as soon as Lou leaves in the morning at 6:30, I tat like mad until Louis wakes up, and then I do my housework until Louis takes a nap, and then I tat like mad some more. It certainly is a tedious process, and when I get a few more things made, I'm going to go down to the store in town and see what I can get for them. If it isn't enough, I'll drop the whole idea, for it is all time-consuming. I cannot sit down to read or tat or write letters while Louis is awake. The idea that I'm sitting down bothers him. He frets and pulls at me until I have to get up. But if I'm up washing dishes or clothes or doing the housework, he'll go off by himself and play very well, just so long as he hears me splashing or moving or walking around. But if I sit down, I can't.
That's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to give a little bit more of so tatting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tatting is something that she actually picked up in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Yes,
Correct?
it is. Yeah.
Yes, which is really neat because we learned in the letters when she picked up this skill, which is actually difficult. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yep.
It's it's needle. It's it's thread work.
Yeah.
So, and obviously takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's neat that we got to see the time that she learned how to do it, and now she's so good at it. She's thinking about selling it. That's just neat.
Selling it.
Yeah. And in this time period too, there are markets that are specifically designed for women who
Yep.
have this, who have, can have access to this so that they can,
Hmm.
sell things.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of came up in a previous letter we had too. And
Yeah.
then also when we were in Chicago at the art museum, do you remember
Oh,
the
yeah.
the woman who basically gifted all of the miniatures, and like
Hmm.
who
Oh,
facilitated
love
that
that video.
entire exhibition, or that entire installation.
Yeah.
They it discusses her being involved with these women's markets at
Yep.
that time period.
Right. It did. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so this is something that, that women in that time period were able to make money if they had these skills, and if they had the time to do that kind of stuff. So this was yet another way for a woman to make income.
Yeah. And then, of course, right before that, we have the big discussion about the medicines being sent by Dr.
Yes.
Demaree. This time, the bottles were not broken. I think every time medicine's been sent prior to this point, bottles broke on the way. And then she's saying what she's treating Lou with. Or little Lewis with. She's giving some comments here. This is going to be my once per episode disclaimer as a reminder to individuals that any medicines noted in these episodes are from the 1940s, are being prescribed or handed by medical professionals of the 1940s. Please do not try things at home and consult a medical professional before taking any medicines and things and prescriptions, obviously. And on to part 2. Thanks for the paper and the carbon. I'm afraid that the paper is too heavy to make sufficient numbers of carbon copies, but I assure you I'll put it to good use. I have quite a bit of carbon. The reason I used both sides of the paper was that Lou had to scrounge this thin stuff, and I was conserving it as long as I could. I knew it was hard to read, but thought I'd wait until somebody said something about it. You were the first to object, so I'll use one side only from now on. I'm darned if I know who Mrs. Hush is. We hadn't heard that program for a long time and hadn't heard of her until you wrote. You were so insistent that we tell you who it was that we made a special point of listening. I still don't know, but I think it must be a movie star from her hints. You've seen me in real life? I couldn't venture a good guess, but my mouth is sure watering over those prizes. You have a telephone. Why don't you try it at least? I would if we had a telephone, but they couldn't call us if they did select my letter. I'm sorry to say that I just don't have the necessary cash required to get the reprints you want for the album. There are a great many of them, and the cost of reprints is high here, and I just can't get them for you right now. However, I promise that I will just as soon as I can. If you'll please try to get Lewis's first birthday pictures printed, and also send me some of the pictures taken at our family reunion. If anybody, you, Daddy, Sister, Mama, or Frank, knew just how bad I want those pictures, surely somebody would work on them. If you can't get them developed and printed, please send me the plates and let me go to the expense of getting them done by a commercial photographer. It certainly would be worth it to me. Just pictures of the family would ease the distance some, and I really do want them. What is the mob at Ford Motor Company? You aren't getting tired of Lakeshore already, are you? Or are you just giving them a scare? You didn't elaborate on that at all, just a bland statement that really carries more interest than you show. The Santa Fe stamps are priceless to Lou. He asks, would you please try to buy him another sheet? If you can do it on the cuff. There are none to be found here, and they surely will be worth something in the very near future. I'm putting the Edison commemoratives on these letters, so will you all please save the whole envelope for us? Finally, here is that eek picture returned to you as requested. I guess we're each feeling sorry for the other on this cold weather business. We had about a week of bad weather, mostly wind, and it was quite miserable too. This little cardboard house really did take a beating. I got some weather tape that Lou brought home and went over the windows, taping all cracks where I could feel the breeze coming in. Our front door is so warped, made out of green lumber, that the breeze actually fanned the framed pictures that hung on the wall. I taped that up and then hung Lou's overcoat up on it and shut out a lot of wind. We've had to use the back door, but that isn't too much trouble. That lasted only 3 or 4 days, and now we're having nice weather again. I think you've had the worst of it, so you stop feeling sorry for me, and I'll go right ahead feeling sorry for you. I think I've shoveled snow only twice so far. I can see you, sister, shoveling out the driveway, and I shivered for Bill walking to the bus. Letters from you and Jean come more quickly by airmail than by regular channels. but it doesn't help for them to come airmail from Lacona. Oh, yes, before I forget. Betty Corey married that Major Davis. He was a Marine captain when you met and danced with him at the BOQ in Ottumwa. Do you remember? He is 11 years older than she is, as you know. I had an announcement of the wedding and also a short note from Mrs. Corey telling that they had a church wedding and they had 5 days together before he had to come back here to his job. He is working, I don't know at what, at Parlin, New Jersey, which would be approximately 50 miles from us. Judging from the letter, they expect me to write and invite her to stay with us until he finds a place for them to live. She is still in San Leandro with her folks. It was a very short and unnewsy letter. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Betty.
Yep.
This Betty Corey
Mm-hmm.
was somebody that Sweetie met in Ottumwa.
Yep.
And didn't she take Betty home? Like to Lacona?
She took Betty home to inspire her with her educational work with Dr. Chester Demaree, with her dad. So she was trying to impart, the focus on education and things by literally taking Betty to Lacona to visit her dad, to give the Dr. Chester Demaree analysis of here's what you need to do to succeed in life, in education and academics. Yeah.
And then she gave her mother so many headaches running away with this Major Davis and all this stuff. And it was a teenager drama.
Mm-hmm.
But
ultimately,
apparently it wasn't, because they got married.
Yeah. And Major Davis, he was an extremely well-decorated war vet from World War II at this point. He served his country honorably. He did well during the war. And yeah, they got married.
And he made an honest woman out of Betty Corey.
And they lived happily ever after.
And they lived happily. I know this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Because, there was a lot of drama around Betty Corey. So this is a wonderful update. But apparently, her mother thinks that you should invite Betty to live with you.
Well, at least to come visit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no, that's okay. She can stay out there with you. But if she didn't explicitly say that, then there's no problem. But yeah, so, this is lovely. This is lovely news.
And then right before that, and I would call attention to this, it seems that Love Lane may have been built very quickly because it's very cold.
Yes, and it was because we talked about the housing situation in that time period. Yeah, and so I bet I'm willing to bet that a lot of other people were dealing with the same problems.
Taping up the door, yeah. So, all right, and we'll continue from here. We've done very little aside from the daily living that is more or less routine. Oh yes, before I forget again, sister, that pin and earring set we sent to you for your birthday is not a homemade article. That is not ceramics. It is a heavy piece of plexiglass. A very small drill was used to make the design, and once completed, paint was dropped very carefully into the flower and leaves. Then the thin piece of plexiglass was used to seal up the back of it, and the holes where the drill work was done. It is being done in the homes, though for commercial sale, and I guess like the ceramics, it will come and then soon pass. I promised Bill a long time ago to send him the process for making the ceramics, and if he is still interested, just say so and I'll write it out for him. Lou's sister went to classes to learn the art. She has made some very good things and could still do so, but the newness has worn off, and it is a lot of work. Have you seen much of it on the counters out there? She is considering selling her kiln, and would probably let me have first crack at it if you are interested. You have to have some artistic abilities to undertake it, as well as a tremendous amount of patience. I applied for my civil service retirement last October, and have just received a check for $78.66. Manna from heaven. I'm going to go tomorrow and take a test for a Pennsylvania driver's license, and so I must study up on the rules. Lewis has just gotten out of bed and is driving me quickly to the screaming Mimi's, so I think I'll call it quits for this day. Florence, I know you find it hard to write. If you aren't too allergic to these carbon copies, why don't you do likewise? Now, everybody, write! Love, Sweetie, Lou, and Lewis.
Well, she's gonna get her driver's license. That's
Mm-hmm.
exciting.
Yeah, man. Not too much news in the last part of this letter, but I do appreciate this little piece of history of jewelry, basically. Things that are being done in the home, but are being sold commercially. Something with, I think it's some sort of flower pressing between panes of plexiglass from what she's describing here. I don't know if this is still done today, but if anybody's into the history of jewelry, and if you run into this is probably the time period where that was being done. Or if you have some of these pieces as little antiques in your jewelry box, you can get a good idea that it was probably done in the late 1940s, just based on what was going on.
But yes, but so that was a very lovely letter. She was catching up with a lot of things we can tell,
Mhm.
like going through and answering questions,
Yep.
and and letting him know what's going on in her life. And Lewis sounds like he's doing very well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good. I just love the doctor's like, you might have your dates mixed up. No, when I was there when he was born.
Yeah. Yeah. It was 45 last I checked. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that was funny. I'm sure he was trying to be funny, but he
Mm.
didn't succeed. So that one was from February, and then we
Right.
don't have another letter until April.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. And here comes a big one. Now, this one's been divided in this video has been divided into 3 parts because we only have the 2 letters today, and we come in on April 5th. So here we are in April going into a letter from April. Very satisfying. 37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, April 5th, 1947. Dear Mama, Daddy, Jean, Sister, Frank, Florence, and all the clan. This will have to be another of those long epistles in order to bring you up to date, and in order to try to reinstate myself in your good graces. So make yourselves comfortable, and leave us begin. As the poor little mouse said to the king of the forest, "We've been sick." Big Lou had a minor touch of the flu, not serious enough that he had to report to sick bay, but enough that he was feeling pretty weak, and only sulfa kept him from having to go to bed. At the same time, they gave booster shots at the base for tetanus, typhoid, and something else. His reaction to the shots was a little greater perhaps because of the cold, and he was really pretty sick. Only the thoughts of a week at sick bay kept him from caving in. Since then he comes home at night, feeling feverish and with a very noticeable flush on his face. That is 2 weeks ago, and he still seems a little feverish. What can you offer as explanation? And what can we do about it at home? Little Louis got pretty cross on Tuesday, about 2 weeks ago. When we put him to bed, his temperature was 102. We gave him half an aspirin and put him to sleep. He had no sign of a cold, and I couldn't think of any reason why he should carry a fever. And in the morning, when it was 104.4, I began to get a little worried. He cried a lot, insisted on being held and babied. We gave him an enema at 6 in the morning, and still some more aspirin. His temperature did go down some, but he kept on fussing and crying, and so we took him to the hospital. The doctor decided that it was tonsillitis, prescribed sulfa, a course of 12 tablets at 4-hour intervals, soda, aspirin for the fever, liquid diet, which we followed as closely as we could. Jean, you would have been right real proud of me. I even sat down and, as near as I knew how, made up a chart and kept very accurate data for 3 or 4 days. Only I saw it, but at least I kept straight on when he took the medicine, how his temperature was, and the amount of fluids he took. As many times as he wet himself, I'm quite sure that his fluid output was perfectly all right. He still didn't develop any cold. His temperature was gone in about 2 days, and then he sprouted a very fine little rash, beginning at his ears, on his forehead, down his neck, and on his chest and back. It never got below his waistline, and it never appeared on his arms or legs. That was on Saturday, and since I couldn't call the doctor at the hospital, I just had to let it go until Monday, when the rash had all but disappeared. Even so, I called to see what he'd say about it. He gave me 3 choices: a sulfa rash, German measles, or roseola. I hope that is spelled right. It sounds like that. He didn't carry a fever with it, but he didn't eat a thing. He was just as listless as he could be, and cried constantly to be held. And there was nothing else I could do. For the first time in his life, he slept as though he were dead, and I was relieved that it wasn't appendicitis, and so the roseola didn't seem so serious. The doctor finally said he thought it was roseola, since the tonsillitis was a forerunner of it. Incidentally, the tonsillitis gave him quite a bad breath for a day or two, though it is cleared up now. He is well now, and has lost his crybaby hanging on me. But he is still pale, so we are pouring cod liver oil down him and giving him orange juice. But he got so wary when the sulfa and soda tablets were pushed at him that he even refuses the cod liver oil, though he used to like that. I just wish somebody would explain to me, how does it happen that Lewis is such a big husky-looking horse of a kid, and he'll catch every germ floating around within a radius of a couple miles, yet this poor little sparrow who lives next door, whose mama doesn't even know that cod liver oil comes in a bottle instead of right from a codfish, never catches a cold. Well, I've had a slight cold and sniffed a Benzedrine inhaler until I started calling myself Benny, but most of my trouble had been in taking care of the boys, not in taking care of myself, and boy do I look it too. I did take my driver's license test, and they restricted me to driving only with my glasses, and I've had some severe and recurring headaches too, so I just took my foot in my hand and went to the hospital to have my eyes examined. Lewis was roughhousing with me and broke the corner out, where the screw attaches the bow, and it is getting worse and worse. Soon the lens will be dropping down as Mama's did that time, and I thought if I am to replace the lens, I might just as well make sure that the prescription is still right. I had to get up at 6 and leave the house at 7 and walk 1.5 miles to the Pike to take the train that took me into 15th Street, then take the subway to the end of the line, and then take the bus to the end of the line to get there. It is an hour's ride with much scurrying to make connections, but I got a great deal of pleasure from getting around alone. Reminded me of the day that Florence and I undertook to travel New York by ourselves. A pair of country bumpkins, we could have been spotted for a country mile. But I enjoyed it very much. The doctor didn't dilate my eyes. He just checked them and decided the prescription that I have now is best, so I guess that I'll let them ride for a while. He was going to send me back to go through the clinic to find out why I was having headaches, and I said, "Oh, no, you don't. I'm satisfied that it is my eyes causing these headaches, and if you're satisfied that it isn't, I'll just keep on eating aspirin. I haven't the time to go over here and sit the rest of the day to be told to come back in 2 weeks." He laughed and said, "Guess it does take a lot of time, doesn't it? They really are very good about seeing everybody, and they are very thorough, and they seem to take a personal interest, or their attitude implies as much. And they were very good with Lewis, I thought." Well, I did see one doctor about being so overweight. I'm not telling what I weigh. Lou calls me fatso. He agreed that I should lose some weight and immediately put me on a strictly diet. So now, though I have tried agitating the adipose with very little result, I'm going to lose some weight or bust. He insists that I come back for a basal metabolism test, and so I go back on April 14th for that. Boy, this time I'm determined. Grr, that takes care of the physical difficulties.
That's a lot. Well, so first, more sickness in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is awful. We get a little bit more information about what a sulfa regimen would look like.
Oh my
12
goodness.
tablets.
Lou, being sick and being feverish every night, working at the base, being like, "Oh, I don't want to go to sick bay. I don't want to go to sick bay." I think Lewis is getting sick because he's bringing everything home.
This is a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we found the culprit. Yeah.
I'm sorry. There he goes.
For
Okay,
our audio listeners, the cat is deciding to make an appearance at this time. All right. So
yeah, if that makes it in, that would be good.
yeah.
Okay. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they all were sick, and then she was feeling it, taking care of the boys.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting into spring, and so I don't know about. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are dealing with the pollen, just as I am, and my family is. But so that also can be contributing to some things. But she likes the doctor.
Yes.
And this is good. And it seems like in this time there is a very good relationship with their medical professionals, and that's good that she feels comfortable enough to come and call him up and ask him questions, which is great.
Yeah.
And then yes, that was a very long trip for her to get her
eyes checked.
Mm-hmm. But that's really nice that she's able to kind of do that herself. She's like, "Oh, I'm getting here and making this," and it's fun. And it was, and having to be around, having your child all the time, and that kind of be your life.
Yeah.
Taking a little break from that, can be good for you. Yeah. What else did she discuss that we were? Oh, it kind of breaks my heart that feels so she feels that she's gaining weight, and this is a problem to the point where she's actually consulting a medical professional about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's a little disheartening.
Yeah.
But I think it does call attention to the fact that this is something that has, that's something that many women deal with.
Yeah.
And we've been dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
in, our health and I think in our weight. And I think that this actually is something that needs some attention,
Yeah.
because she feels about it not in a way that it's affecting her health.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way that she's perceived.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we can kind of discuss this issue,
Yeah.
because she's not doing this because of her health.
No. And Lou isn't helping here. This is probably one of the
Mm-mm.
most negative moments we've ever seen in a letter from Lou. Lou's just kind of poking again when it's really unnecessary. It shows us that even like the people that we like the most have these moments where they just do outright stupid things. I'm just going to call it as it is. And she's already in a position where she's thinking about consulting a medical professional when it doesn't seem that this is even necessary at the time.
Mm-mm.
But it's that idea of women, especially with the self-esteem, with being self-conscious. And she already has this inferiority complex from everything else. Not good timing on Lou, and it doesn't age well, and it never will. That's basically
Mm-mm.
it. But she's going to write about this from time to time, and we know this is a challenge that people struggle with. I struggle with it. I have no qualms about saying that. Sweetie, she's fine.
Yeah.
Sweetie, you're fine.
You're fine.
Like, please
Okay.
stop worrying about this, but we're going to hear about it, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Louis is surely growing. He seems so big that I can hardly imagine him the size that R and F must be now. I wish I could have seen F. I can still remember R as he was when we were home. Of course, that keeps him a very tiny baby without the changes that he has probably made now. I'd like to have a picture of F to at least see what he looks like. Louis is talking a little more, but slowly. He got some nice books for Christmas, just loves to be read to and to look at the pictures. He can turn the pages, recognize a kitty, dog, telephone, clock, shoes, owl, and many other things. He has his own particular method of saying the word, but he can recognize the things. He has all but 4 of his baby teeth. He plays quite well by himself and gets more enjoyment from the rocking horse that Lou made him than anything else he owns. We're not going to go all out on Easter. We have a small Easter basket. We'll fill it with a few eggs and some candy, but I've been thinking about getting him a baby chicken. He probably would kill it, but I know he'd be so excited he'd probably dance a ring around himself. Mama would have to clean up and take care of it, but the only thing he sees around here, and can recognize, is a bunch of dogs and one scraggly old cat. We were out for a ride the other day, and came upon a pony-drawn cart with a couple of kids in it. Lou slowed down while we passed it, and Louis just boo-woo-wooed till he was hoarse. We never did convince him that it was a pony. Daddy, your package arrived. I've never seen that sticky gauze that you sent. I'm going to start giving Louis the ascorbic acid tablets. I've been relying on the oranges, but I have too hard a time getting him to drink enough of it to do him enough good. So I'm glad to have the tablets. Lou and I have talked quite a bit about the farm and the new saw that you have. Lou once heaved a sigh and said, "Bet he's getting his money's worth out of that saw." I've seen a picture of it, but can only depend on my imagination when it comes to seeing it in action. I wonder if Louis would remember the calves. He enjoyed them last summer. He loves to be outdoors and knows no boundaries within his own yard. I wish we could get some sort of a fence put up in our nice big backyard. He'd practically live outdoors this summer. It isn't safe to let him out by himself, because there are so many bigger kids who have the run of everything. They play in the road, sit down in the middle of it. When a car comes, it is every man for himself, and nobody stops to think of the smaller kids. One of these days, one of them won't move fast enough. He hangs after the bigger little kids, and often is so convulsed with laughter that he is powerless to move. When he laughs, it is so funny that they all stop to laugh at him, and pretty soon it is just too hilarious. I try to drag him into the house so he can quiet down before supper and bedtime, but often I hear him chuckle in his sleep. He holds onto that bottle as though it were a part of him. and I've decided to let it go at that for a while yet. Mama, Jean says you went back to the dentist to get your lowers relined. I'd surely love to see them choppers. Yak yak. You know, I said we'd try to be with you on your birthday, and now I'm beginning to be afraid that that can be possible only if we postpone your birthday for a while. We have a semi-annual premium to make on Lou's insurance, and besides, they are sending these guys, a few at a time, for a 6 weeks course in school in Tennessee. We don't know just when that will be, but think it will be a little later in the summer. If we could wait a while, perhaps I could come there while he is in Tennessee. Lou won't be able to get any leave until after July, since the Navy's fiscal year begins then. It can only be a hope, and I guess when we decide it will be in a hurry, and without much advance notice. So, Jean, I can't say just exactly when we can come. You go ahead and apply for your vacation time as it suits you best, and I'll try to make ours coincide if that is possible. So, your house cleaning. My curtains are so dirty they are about to drop from the windows, but to wash them by hand almost surely means the death of them, and the thoughts of ironing them makes my toes curl. The wallpaper is so dirty we mustn't brush against it for fear of dirtying our clothes. I wish we could paint them with Chemtone, but I'm too Scotch to put any money into this place when we want to move closer to the base if we possibly can. I swore I'd never wash this paint again, but it looks like I'll just have to eat my words and do it anyway. I doubt if we'll have any, or at least much of a garden. It would probably be left for me to tend, and I've got too much to do now to get any letters written. Little Louis.
Chuckles in his sleep.
Chuckles in his sleep.
That's adorable.
Wooing at a horse. Playing in the street.
Yes, that really, his childhood is much different from hers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, she grew up on the farm and she had animals and they, grew a lot of their own food and did that stuff. And he doesn't have that kind. Like, I laugh at the idea of her getting a chicken.
Oh my gosh.
Just one. But yeah, so he's doing quite well. And that's awesome. And they're, doing a little bit of an Easter thing. I mean, he's young.
Yeah.
So, but so Lou might go to a course in Tennessee for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That would be good for him. That's good for him.
Yeah.
To have this opportunity.
And then the interior of the house. Now, we brought this up in the previous week. This is coal-heated home. So imagine going through the winter. You're heating your home with coal from the furnace. And she's talking about how dirty the wallpaper is. Chemtone was, like a layer of paint. And she's basically saying, we're not going to invest in here. There's no ROI for this. To take care of the home much further. She's already described in the previous letter that they needed the tape for the doors because the wind is coming in, so she doesn't want to put too much into it. But it's probably all of that sort of like residue from the coal, from the heating of the homes, that's starting to get to things, and it's starting to bother her at this point. But I don't think I don't think she wants to make curtains or do things, but she'd have to still do it by hand, because though she doesn't mention it here, she still doesn't have a sewing machine. So she's just true. Let those curtains hang, even if they're dirty, and even if they're falling apart, because if she takes them down, they might fall apart, and she doesn't want to make new ones by hand. She doesn't have time.
And you need the curtains. You need curtains.
You need curtains.
They're in a place, where they're... I totally forgot about the sewing machine saga. This is April.
That was last fall. Last July or August, there was a 2 to 3 month wait. It was pushed back. This is now April. She doesn't mention it. I can say definitively she does not have the sewing machine yet. So, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sister, little M is nigh onto a year old now. Louis has grown so much that I can imagine how big she is too. Has she changed much in looks? Is she still such a daddy's girl? I hope you don't undertake such a big garden this year. Of course, your 2 big kids are big enough now to help some, but not enough to justify your working like a farmhand. Besides, M.A. should not be invested with so much responsibility for little M that she can't enjoy her vacation from school. There is no such burdened little girl as one who has to be constantly baby tending. Of course, there are those who use the baby as a means of getting out of other work, so I guess it depends on who is the more foxy, the mama or the little girl. Yak yak, I'm starting in on Lewis to pick up the toys and put them away. But somehow he finds that each has to be examined before it can be put away, and the examination can become so minute that in order to walk through the living room with any safety at all, I have to clear a path through, and somehow that takes care of the object lesson, and I end up by doing the putting away. Depends upon who's the foxiest, mama or boy. Yak yak. When does Bill get vacation this year? And what are your plans for enjoying it? I guess. Florence, I haven't heard from you since last February, I think. I admit to being the world's worst correspondent. But if you don't hurry up and write, I'll give you the dubious honor of being put in second place. Has R started walking yet? KM walked so early that I've been thinking of R bumping his head on the chair rungs. What does he weigh? Does he talk at all? Does KM seem to understand his baby chatter? KM is such a sweet little girl, and I'll bet she'll have lots of fun when she goes to visit Grandpa and Grandma again this year. Have you made any plans for such a visit? Send me some pictures of them, won't you? I'd sure love to see them, and you.
So many babies. There were so many babies in this family at the same time. And just to bring everybody up to speed too, sister had a baby.
Right.
And Florence is Bob's widow.
Mm-hmm.
She also had a baby, little R.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's getting to so there's just so many lovely little babies around.
Mm-hmm. Kids trying to outsmart their parents.
Mm-hmm.
She says, who's the foxiest? I love this phrase. Right. And then she starts talking about what Lewis is doing, which is the thing that we've all seen. I remember doing this. I would probably, I don't know. I feel like if I'm over at my parents' house, maybe I'll admit to this. And my mom's asking me for me to do a chore. Oh, just one more minute, let me look at the thing I'm looking at, maybe drag out the time a little bit longer here. So,
oh yeah, I'll tell my son, I'll be like, pick up your Legos, and then he'll be like, oh, but wait, this is a cool
investigate this one.
I'm gonna go ahead and just start playing right now. Yeah. They get excited. They're like, oh no, not for picking up, for playing. Yep. Yeah. That's and she did say he's a little foxy guy. He's a little sly little devil, and so she just ends up doing the work anyway. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's again another thing that is it's just across the board. That's always happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then there's the note about Florence, and the biggest thing about Florence here, she writes, I might be the world's worst correspondent. To whom? What are you... This leads back to this whole other thing of the inferiority complex coming in. I don't know of a better correspondent that I've ever seen as a historian, sweetie. So I don't know who you're comparing yourself to, but yeah. But she is a little... There's a concern that... This is going to be a concern that comes up in the letters. There's a concern that Florence isn't writing as frequently as the others. And I think it's just things are in a hard place for Florence. And that's how that situation goes. But Sweetie's making this effort. She's trying to goad people in her own way into writing and staying in touch because she wants to make sure that the whole family is corresponding with one another. So she's making her personal effort.
And that's indicative of this family.
Yep.
They roast each other and poke and prod at each other. Like she gets her letters. Oh, I really wish we could see some of these letters. I'm sure that Dr. Chester has sent to her about writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. So she's also kind of she's trying to keep. I can understand how Florence would feel a little bit outside of this because her husband is gone.
Yeah.
That direct connection to the family, and she's with her own family, trying to raise her own children. Yeah. And Sweetie, and she has said that she wants to make sure that Florence always feels that she's still part of the family.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Frank and Maida, I've never seen a picture of your son yet, and my disjointed nose is suffering no end. I'm sure you're very busy now that you've 2 children and the ensuing work, diapers, bottles, formulas, etc. But just one little picture, please. Frank, how will the proposed Bell telephone strike affect you? Or will it? When do you plan to take your vacation? And what are you planning to do? I have a few snapshots to send to you. They'll go first to the folks, and then they should be passed around amongst you.
Jean, you select the one you like best of him in the snowsuit that you bought him, and hang on to it if you like. I took these especially so you might have one of the snowsuit, and while they aren't too good, you'll at least see how it looks. There are a few of the kid next door and Dot. I never go outside with a camera. But what she doesn't instantly appear with Johnny, and I can hardly do anything but take the pictures. She is pretty vicious when rubbed the wrong way. I'm to rub her fur up and take the course of least resistance in order to maintain peace. These houses are entirely too close together for discordancy, and the little film, well, they show the remains of the one big snow we had. These were taken on 2 different days, which goes to show that she produced Johnny in a hurry when the camera shutter clicked. The one of Lewis pulling the wagon should be labeled The Haircut. I took him and had it cut very shortly afterwards, and gee, what a ruckus he did raise. Daddy, I know you'll be throwing all your time and efforts at the farm now that spring is upon us, but I sure do wish that we could have some more of the pictures that were taken last September. I did like the ones of sisters, kids, and the one of the group. I could hear you calling me egghead for looking at Susie instead of at the camera, but I liked them anyway. I'd sure like to see some of Lewis with his birthday cake. The Grahams have asked about them several times, and I'd sure like to see them myself. I did want to comment here just very, very briefly. I have yet to find pictures of Lewis and a birthday cake and these pictures from Lacona, so I think they possibly have gone the way of the chairs that Laura's been waiting on with all the things that Dr. Demaree is doing.
Like, I'm clearly drinking coffee, Alton.
So,
and then you pull that. Don't. I was like over here drinking some coffee.
Yeah. So
you haven't found those pictures?
I haven't found those pictures, but I have found some other pictures, and at the end of this letter, we will be able to show some of the other pictures. But these ones from Lacona from September. Nope, the doctor's been very busy with some. It's been a while since we said it. What's the phrase? Puttering, potentially, and it may have distracted him from ever getting around to that. So I'll eat my words if I find them in the attic somewhere, but I have yet to find these photos. Jean, if I'm to get this done and ready to mail before Lewis begins hauling and dragging at me, I'll have to slight you a little and try to do you justice in another letter. Now that I've gotten started, perhaps I won't have so much trouble keeping up instead of getting so far behind. Your letters have been wonderful and have accomplished their purpose. It takes a lot of work to keep the house presentable. Lewis being sick required a lot of extra attention and time, and I could keep on postponing writing easier than I could sit and listen to him cry and have him pulling at me and crawling up in my lap to get in the way and all. I've hardly been able to live with my conscience, though, and already I feel relieved to have written to all of you at once, even though it is through the carbon copy method. I think of you all always, and how often do I nearly speak aloud to the one in my mind. I think of something that happened, or of something we've talked about, and I nearly say that I've been thinking, yet I never remember what it was when I sit down to write to you. As I've already told Mama, I can't be sure when, or even if we can come there this summer, and I've just been dreaming about your coming here to see us. I know that the travel time takes up so much of the vacation, and the time goes so quickly when we're together that a vacation seems to come and go before you know it. But couldn't you come here this summer? I heard over the radio that Don McNeil is bringing the Breakfast Club to New York. I could write and get tickets, and we could go over and see it at Radio City Music Hall. Maybe Florence would like to deposit her 2 children with the folks or sister, and she could come with you, so you wouldn't have to make the trip alone, or even Hilma, though I'd much rather Florence would come. Then the 3 of us country bumpkins would show these so-called city slickers just where to head in. We have a Davenport that makes out into a pretty comfortable bed to sleep, too. We'd have such fun if you could come. I know that you can't decide just offhand, but I sure wish you'd think about it, and at least try to see it. I hear Lewis, and so I'd better stop. I'll try to write to you on Sunday, Jean, and try to answer some questions you've asked. Lou has the duty and won't be home, so I'll try to do it then, and bring you up to date on the little minor things. I hope I've at least made amends for not writing. I do love you all. Love, Sweetie, Lou, and Lewis.
I think she did a very good job with that letter.
She did. Yeah, she definitely had some stories to tell, things she wanted to talk about. I do get this little hint. I don't know if I will call it her Hutchinson mode, her Kansas mode, because those are the first letters back in season 1 where really there was a desire to, please people, come and see me. Please come here to see me. It was the first time she was really out of Iowa, and she had to ask family to visit. But as promised, there are some pictures to show. Now, there is a story with these photos, because I honestly thought, and I'd said this, I think in some episodes of the past too, I didn't think these pictures still existed. But I went up into the attic and I was looking behind some furniture, and lo and behold, there were a few more cardboard boxes, not large boxes, and I thought they just contained items and things like that. But I was like, you know what? Let me just make sure that there's nothing in here. And there were thousands more photos and items. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was looking through and I came across this little envelope, and on it, it was an envelope of negatives. And on it said Norwood, Pennsylvania. And I was like,
oh lovely.
Oh my gosh.
She put them all in there and labeled them.
She labeled them. So we know they're from 47. We know they're from Norwood. So without further ado, now, the house in the background is not 37 Love Lane. That is not Sweetie's house, because it has the stone front. And Sweetie's house does not have the stone front. But if we remember from a previous episode, when they first moved to Love Lane, she noticed that her neighbor's house had the stone front. And in the center of this picture, so we know this is the neighbor's home across the way, we can see the remnants of the snow. In the center of the picture, we can see 2 little boys. So for our audio listeners, if you're listening, and I'll describe the scene here, we see 2 little boys down front. The person on the left is little Lewis in his snowsuit. The person on the right, I guess everybody can guess who the person on the right is. And that's little Johnny. Sweetie's behind the camera, though. So the person trying to get them to look at the camera, Lewis isn't agreeing with this at the time, obviously, because he's looking down in the photo, is Dot herself. So
yeah, she heard the camera shutter click.
There it is.
So she brought, and she honestly looks like she just threw a jacket on over her her house coat, and I do kind of like, you see her shoes.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the fashions of this time. You can kind of get an idea of like how they dressed here. There's an old car in the background.
Yep.
And Sweetie has explained that her yard is quite big. And honestly, I think for a suburb of Philadelphia, this is kind of probably a larger area for them to play. So there's sidewalks, there's the road that the children play in. And so you can kind of see a lot of what she was talking about in her letter.
Yeah, you get the sense of this project that was built. You see the spacing between the homes and things. So it's great to have this awesome visual. But we have a few more pictures from the same series, because we have to see Sweetie's home as well. But this is 37 South Love Lane. So we see it without the stone. So there's Sweetie's home.
Yeah, we see the home. But you can see that there's the little, probably the little stroller that they used.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that you think that's Dot?
That's definitely Dot, yeah, because we see the 2 boys again. So it's little Lewis and little Johnny. Yep. And then we have a close-up of Lewis. We need to see this one, of course, because he's the star of the show.
Yes.
100%. He always thinks he is anyway. So let's not upset that. But we also get to see the house number. So we know absolutely this is 37 South Love Lane. So here's the star himself.
Look at how adorable.
Yeah.
Look at how adorable. Yep, 37.
37.
Oh, and in this too, they have some bushes out front. That's nice. In this too, we see some milk bottles by the door. That is so cool. So obviously you're done with your milk, you leave your bottles out, and then they replace them.
Yep, milkman comes by. Yep. I think there was one letter where she mentioned she was concerned that if the doors left open, that little Lewis would fall off the cement step in front. That is a big step for this little kid. And it looks like he's considering in this photo, for our audio listeners, taking the step off of this the front stoop. This is a little difficult for him. So I'm sure she's ready to run for it and catch him if he makes the wrong determination here.
Well, and we can see too. She described his snowsuit in a letter, and that it was was kind of big on him. You can see, it kind of comes down probably over his little feet.
Yeah, definitely. So
look how cute. Yeah,
so cute. Yep.
Do you have another one?
I have one more to show.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. All right. We have one more here from the set, and it's again of Lewis, but we get him looking up.
Look at his cute little face. I bet that's the picture she was taking when Dot was like, oh, she's got a camera. I got to run out there. But yeah, well, how perfect. It's so nice. And so Jean bought him a little snowsuit, and I can imagine that this was kind of something expensive. You knew he was going to only be able to wear it for a year.
Yep.
So it's hard to justify those kind of expenses. So it's nice that Jean was able to buy this for her. But, oh, what a sweet.
So cute.
He is so cute.
Yeah. Hey, so everybody, especially our audio listeners, if you'd like to examine these photos some more, they're going to be available on the Love Sweetie podcast website. We didn't actually go through this at the beginning, so I'm going to take the opportunity here at the end of the episode. Check out the Love Sweetie podcast website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Go to Sweetie's Scrapbook, and you'll see an album there for Norwood, Pennsylvania. So when this episode airs, everyone will get to see the photos that we just went through and be able to see the setting. So thank you, Sweetie, for saving these. Thank you so much. And then, of course, if you could please share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. We're there at that anniversary. If you've been listening in the whole year and you haven't subscribed yet, it's time to take that step and click that button there on the YouTube video. To all of our audio listeners, if you could leave a review on the various channels that you're listening on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the others, we appreciate that as well. We appreciate all of our listening and our viewing audiences. And with that concludes this episode. We're going to continue next week with more letters from April of 1947, but we'll leave everybody with the images fresh in their mind of Love Lane. So, and have a lovely, lovely April.